Watch 20 years on, Muslim journalists reflect on reporting in a post-9/11 world after September 11th. The US saw a spike in hate crimes across the country. That year, the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Program recorded the most hate crimes ever reported to date. Nearly 5% of all hate crimes committed that year were directed against Muslims.While Islamophobia existed in the US and elsewhere before 9/11, all of the prejudice became much more intensified, and the Muslim minority became much more visible from that point onward, said Faiza Patel, co-director of the Liberty and National Security Program at the Brennan Center for Justice. Since 2001, Muslims have been the second most frequent target for religiously motivated hate crimes, according to the federal hate crime data. But using hate crime data is only one measure of Islamophobia, Patel said. Verbal harassment, employment discrimination, cyberbullying and social media hate groups are all forms of Islamophobia that occur on a daily basis and get overlooked in federal reports. Experts say they see the fear-mongering and political rhetoric stereotyping Muslims, the legalized targeting of Muslim communities, and conflicts abroad are cementing the racist trope that Muslims are terrorists, which then empowers acts of violence against all those perceived to be Muslim. HuffPost national reporter Owida Abdelaziz and MSNBC host Ayman Mahildan joined the PBS NewsHour Al-Manawaz on September 8 to discuss the role of Muslim journalists in media coverage in a post-9/11 world, Islamophobia and how stereotypical depictions of Muslims in America harm the community. Abdelaziz was in middle school on September 11, 2001. She remembers in the aftermath of 9/11, hearing words like jihad in media coverage in ways she had not heard before. People would ask her questions about the war on terror and to defend Islam. Muslims were supposed to act as brand ambassadors, and for someone that young, it was a heavy emotional and mental toll. I was just trying to figure out how to survive middle school, she told the NewsHour. She describes that her faith was demonized overnight, but from there, she became curious in order to challenge those conversations and that narrative, which led to the start of her journalism career. Mahildan said he went from covering shark attacks as an intern at NBC to working on investigative pieces on 9/11 because he spoke Arabic. From there, he was deployed to cover the invasion of Afghanistan. When I look back at the last 20 years, my entire career has been defined by that starting point of September 11th terrorist attacks. Below are highlights from the live discussion. Following 9/11, and early on in his reporting career, Mahildan said he was focused less on acting as a representative for the Muslim community and more on making sure his reporting was accurate and contextualized. In the political discourse surrounding the early years of the war on terror, Mahildan said he noticed broad generalizations when discussing the Middle East, minimizing the community and making them synonymous with war and terrorism. He said he was focused on including nuance to audiences who sometimes had these general stereotypes of Muslims always being at war, or backward, or extremists. After 9/11, Mahildan recalled inflammatory headlines that would depict Muslims as villains. We were trying to answer these questions of why do Muslims hate us, he said. And that terminology was completely off base and inappropriate for meaningful conversations to try to understand what was actually happening. The stereotype that Muslim identity was a threat to national security became further entrenched in American society, so much so that even those who were perceived to be Muslim were also targeted by Islamophobic violence. Mahildan and Abdelaziz recalled their experiences as journalists and the challenges they face in the field, not only because of their Muslim faith and identity, but because of the difficulties that uninformed stereotypes pose in trying to communicate and contextualize the complex identities of Muslim communities. The crux of Islamophobia is that it doesn't only just impact Muslims, it has racialized Muslim identity to the extent that it impacts people who are perceived to be Muslims. Abdelaziz explained. If you are brownish or assume that you have any type of ties to the Islamic identity, that suddenly makes you a villain in some way, it makes you a lesser human. That perception impacts people's experiences from heightened government surveillance to discrimination in daily life, she explained. One's identity and religion don't always play a role in how one's civil rights are impacted. Up until 2015, incidents of anti-Arab violence were combined into the FBI's category of bias against other ethnicity, nationality, non-Hispanic. In 2001, hate crimes reported against this catch-all group were more than triple the number of anti-Muslim hate crimes. According to the Center for the Study on Hate and Extremism, that was driven by an increase in hate crimes motivated by ethnic and national origin, including a 324% surge in anti-Arab hate. The Sikh Coalition, founded on the night of 9/11 to offer free legal resources and support in anticipation of increased hate against the community, documented more than 300 cases of anti-Sikh violence and discrimination in the first few months after 9/11. In 2015, the Sikh Coalition, along with other civil rights organizations, pressured the FBI to officially track hate crimes motivated by anti-Arab and anti-Sikh bias. Since that year, the Sikh community has been in the top 5 most targeted faith groups. According to Nikki Singh, Senior Policy and Advocacy Manager of the Sikh Coalition, beyond racist individuals targeting Sikhs because of their faith or general xenophobic sentiments, violence against Sikh individuals increased dramatically after 9/11 in part due to misplaced Islamophobia. Sikhs maintain a very visible identity in terms of their articles of faith. Sikhs wear turbans, maintain uncut hair, including facial hair, explains Singh. Because of those visible articles of faith, there has been a false conflation with images of the Taliban. Kiran Kaur, Executive Director of the Sikh American Legal Defense and Education Fund, said that misidentification is exacerbated by a lack of knowledge about Sikhism. There's just such a lack of awareness of who Sikhs are and our religion and our philosophy and our presence in the United States, which actually spans over a century, Gill said. In many ways our stories are invisible and our experiences are invisible. When people saw our articles of faith, they mistook them as somehow being related to terrorism or Al-Qaeda.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe